I grew up in West Texas. I did not have any awareness of ultra running. And what's fun about today's episode about the Palo Duro Ultra is that it happened about an hour and a half or less north of where I lived. I was in Lubbock, Texas. This is just south of Amarillo, outside of Canyon, Texas, in the Palo Duro Canyon. I had no idea. And this race has been around for a very long time. Very long time. I think it's knocking on the door of 40 years. So as a 50K and 50 miler, it was, a period of which it was one of the few in the country. So this is a really cool conversation that I had today. In some ways, it's a homecoming. Of all the races, I knew going into this conversation that I plan to run this at some point because I think it's an interesting story for me personally to go back to where I'm from and to run a race in a canyon that I look on very fondly and am very proud of that area now, even though I wasn't at the time. Before I do this interview, though, all about Palo Duro Ultra, if you're enjoying the podcast, if you want to listen to future episodes and not miss out on them, would you click the follow button on whatever platform you're listening on? Also, we have a new documentary out, Trail Grit Ep4, all about me at the Zion 100 miler. I DNF'd 8 of 9 attempts before that. So I've only finished 1 out of 9 tries. And that episode was all about me going back for lucky number 10 to try and get the 100 miler. So I hope you watch it. Hope you take the time. I'll put that in the show notes. All right, here it is. Palo Duro Ultras. I left West Texas 22 years ago for Salt Lake City. And when I left West Texas, I thought it was a flat, boring place. And here I am 22 years later, and it's still flat to me, but it's no longer boring. I actually long to be back there. My heart that so loves deserted areas, even if it's not just the desert, but deserted areas, the plains. I want to go back. And now I've heard of this trail run. I've heard of Palo Duro trail runs as I started getting into trail running, but there was this part of me that was still like, do I want to go back to West Texas where I'm from and run a trail race? And over time, I concluded that I absolutely want to do that. And time just hasn't allowed me to do it. So as I go through all these races in season 3, mostly what I'm saying is that there's more races out there than my body would ever let me run. And so in place of that, I just want to talk to as many people who've run races or race directors of all these cool races and just learn everything I possibly can. But this is one that I do intend to be at one day, and it'll feel something of a homecoming to me to go back to West Texas and do the thing that Salt Lake gave to me as a gift. Salt Lake gave me this ultra running passion as a gift because it's such a cool community up here and the mountain running is so cool up here. But today we get to do a deep dive into Palo Duro trail runs. And I think Palo Duro Canyon, if you don't know about it, it is a stunning canyon, but because it was so close to home for me, it was hard for me to appreciate it for what it was when I was growing up. And now I'm excited to learn more about the canyon, learn more about this race, learn more about what West Texas is bringing to the trail running world, and then vice versa, what we can, how many of us can go down and run this race sometime soon. So I'd like to welcome Karen and Kirsten of Palo Duro Trail Runs. Thanks for joining me today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We always love to talk about our trail run.
Yeah, I love it. And gosh, I love hearing this West Texas accent, and I mean it. It's so it takes me back, and I'm just glad that we're here doing this today. Let's just jump right in. Let's go history of the race. Like, how long has this race been going on? What distances do you have? Give me kind of the high level, the elevator pitch when you're explaining Palo Duro Trail Run.
Sure. So this race actually started 39 years ago. Whoa. It started on the roads because that long ago they did not have that many trails. But there were 3 gentlemen who were very instrumental in blazing a lot of those trails. Red Spicer, who I knew, got to run with, work on the trails with, and run a couple of his races. And then there was Bob Givens and Tom Lowry. So there is a trail down there called GSL, named after Givens, Spicer, Lowry.
Oh, that's cool.
And from what I hear, I never talked to Red about this, but I believe he ran with Ann Trayson back in the day.
No way.
I think he hung out with, all the trail runners who were true trail runners. I don't know if he ran with Gordy Ainsley, but
But maybe he was running, maybe he came and ran Wasatch in the 80s. I mean, there wasn't too many options if he was going hard in the 80s.
Right. Yeah, I think he was just an avid trail runner and traveled a lot. From what I hear, he was a pretty colorful gentleman. His name was Red, but he drove a yellow Corvette. Kind of a ladies' man, so I hear. But I think those guys loved running. They loved trail running. They loved Palo Duro Canyon and West Texas, like you talked about. Yeah. It's very expansive, but I think they just loved Palo Duro Canyon, so they started blazing those trails, and eventually, they started running them on the trails. They started out, I believe, and it might have just been a marathon back then, but when I started, the first time I found out about it and started running it, probably 15 years ago or 17, they had a 20K, 50K, 50 mile. Since then, we have transformed it into a 25K, 50K, 50 mile. So that's kind of a little bit of the history and the distance. I took over as race director with a friend of mine, Kevin McClish, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And then I did it maybe 1 year by myself, and then Kirsten joined in after that. And we have we just have a great volunteer group in the area who love trails and love to give back. So I think that's one of the big compliments that we get from runners. Yeah. We love your volunteers.
Oh man, that's great. I could see that with the West Texas hospitality, that you combine like what is already the best community, I think, in the world. Any race that you go to, ultra race that you go to, anywhere in the world, the people, I mean, it's, in your mind, you think you're going to do it because you're going to do something hard, and you are, and you have that great memory. But at the same time, it just blows my mind how great the people are. And then you combine this sort of West Texas hospitality ethos with a community that's already great. I can imagine that it's probably got some really good people at those aid stations. That's cool. So when you say blazing these trails, were they literally cutting the trails, like making the trails?
Yes. So as far as I know, those guys made many of the trails down there. And then I mentioned Kevin McClish. He has done a lot of work. He has since moved to Colorado, a little cooler temperatures. Sure. But he was very instrumental in working on those trails too. And right now we have, and mainly it's volunteers. It is a Texas state park, but the volunteers who are the biking community, the running community, the hiking community, I would give the bikers more credit than anyone for going down there, maintaining the trails. It gets washed out. They'll move rocks. They'll, just help get it back in shape because they love it as well as the runners do. Hey,
that's great to hear, because up here in Salt Lake in the mountains, we're all cordial to one another's face. However, sometimes there's a little bit of, let's say, shit talking behind each other's backs. So I love that you're saying some positive things. I'm gonna learn from that and start doing that myself. To me, the only issue is the pedal assist bikes on the trail. That's my only pet peeve as a trail runner back here. When you're just surprised by a 20-mile-an-hour uphill bike, it's just a bit much, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do geography. Most of the time I am off on my geography. However, since I grew up here, I know this geography pretty well. So Palo Duro Canyon is in between Lubbock and Amarillo in the Panhandle, but it's closer to Amarillo. It's very close to Amarillo. And when you think of West Texas, it's plains, it's really flat, and then all of a sudden there's this canyon. So Am I correct in this, that it's the second largest canyon in the United States, other than the Grand Canyon being number one? Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. So it's about maybe 10 miles east of Canyon, the city of Canyon, definitely closer to Amarillo, about a half-hour drive for us. But yes, people are amazed when you take them out there for the first time because it's so flat and it's so yellow, amarillo, or brown, as I like to call it.
Fair.
And all of a sudden, boom, you see this expansive canyon that's about 60 miles long, 800 feet deep, many, many miles of trails. People can ride bikes on the road, but mainly people are on the trails. But it's beyond belief when some people go down there. They just cannot imagine and that's how we promote it. Second largest canyon in the U.S. Not really, you can't really compare it to Grand Canyon.
Sure.
But however, for it being out here, it is just, it's beautiful and amazing.
Yeah, it's a great reprieve for the region. Like when I look at most ultras, most ultras will always pull people randomly from throughout the country. But by and large, most people who are running an ultra are coming within an 8-hour drive of the ultra itself. And within 8 hours of this drive, you've got Austin, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, maybe Denver. It's got it. So it really, my guess, and you're the ones who would know. I mean, are you pulling from all these places for these runners? I saw Nicole Bitter has the 3 first, second, and third fastest times. So you got someone coming from, I don't know if she's in Wisconsin or she's north. So you're pulling. Go ahead.
Good.
Well, I'm saying
no, she's in Austin
you're pulling
now.
From all over. Oh, okay.
We are. So you're totally correct in that. I mean, we get a ton of people from the Dallas area, McKinney Runners Club. Texas, is our biggest draw. Then typically Arizona, New Mexico. We get people from Colorado. Actually, we get people from all over the world, so to speak. We've had people from the UK. We've had people from Spain. We have some people coming in from Washington this year. But we do get a large group, from Amarillo that do that 25K. Most of our people that are coming in from out of town we have a huge amount that are running the 50K, 50 mile. As an ultra runner, you like to go to different states. You like to go to different locations, try different routes. And that's what we love about it, is that we have people from all over the country. And one thing that we do at the finish line is we line the finish line with flags from their state or their country as they're finishing. So we represent every state, and usually it's states, but occasionally, we have some countries. So
I love that.
That's really cool that we do draw from a lot of different places.
So there's a simple answer to this question that I'm gonna give it, so that way you have to give me a more complicated answer, and that is, how are you? Why is your race attractive to such a far-reaching area? The simple answer is good marketing. Okay, so I've taken that one from you. What is it about it that you think ends up? Why would someone drive 8 hours or buy a plane ticket from Spain?
Yeah, we don't market at all, so it's not marketing. We had felt, and I'll be honest with you, when I took it over, the people that I took it over from and from Red, it's very grassroots. Yeah. It's not something really that we want to promote in a big way. We like it being a little smaller. We try to say, we'll fill up the 25K at 400. Since post-COVID, we have not been able to do that. However, we had 519 total runners last year. Nice. The trails can handle about 600, 650. Okay. That 50K, 50 mile, we can handle more people, which we've always thought we would love to get more 50K, 50 mile people, but it's not something that we really want to go out and promote. We'd like to keep it small. We'd like to keep it grassroots. To answer that question, I think people, either when they run it or they hear about it from one of their friends or they see pictures, that intrigues them. I've had people come in from Colorado saying, wow, we never knew this was here, and I consider this as or more beautiful than from where I'm from. And I don't know if I agree with them, but you know what? That's their perspective, and that's their belief, and it is truly beautiful.
It is.
Also, I wanted to say, I think we have the best volunteers in our aid stations. We constantly get just so many people that rave about them, and I hear too when they go to other races and they'll say their aid stations were not as good as yours. So our volunteers, they bring it, and we really do our best to make the food and the aid stations, all of that.
Tell me more about that, because obviously a good aid station, I consider a good aid station is one that's also just forgettable, because it just did what it needed to do. And so it's like, hey, I don't necessarily remember it. That to me, that's great. That's a win. But you're saying it's memorable. Is it food that you're offering? Are you doing anything special on the table itself? Is the drink anything unique about it? Obviously the good personalities, the hospitality, but what do you think is making it so memorable?
Well, I think, like you said, the unmemorable ones, the guys, the people that are racing it, they are blazing through, so they don't really even stop. But it's the mid packers and back of the packers that it's
Chatting
really
for
special for them. Yeah, they love being able to talk with people, and we also do special drinks at our aid stations that we may or may not be allowed to promote.
Now this feels like outlaw West Texas, and I'm more in love than ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We're going to do aid station contests between our aid stations so that the runners can vote at the best theme, best everything, best food, all of that. So
fun.
We really try to make it fun and include everyone. So especially those mid packers and back of the packers that they feel special and they feel encouraged and they just love it. So.
And one of the things that, I mean, when I started taking it over, I really wanted to have my volunteers help, not just sit back. I mean, yes, COVID changed a few things, but my goal is for, if that runner's coming in, let's fill up their bottle. Let's get them what they need. Let's get them in and out of that aid station as fast as we can, if that's their goal. Now, if it's not their goal and they want to sit around and they want to chat, we have great people who want to do that too. We allow them to decorate, you know, like Kirsten said, create a theme, you know, make it fun, have cowbells, have signs. We have some kids from some local schools that are out on the course with signs and cheering. And we've heard so many positive comments about, gosh, I could hear those kids when I left, you know, the aid station for a while. They were just cheering and yelling. And our little secret food that we have, there's a bakery in town that they did this way before I took it over, but they're called date bars. It's a lot of sugar, a lot of butter, pecans, but they're to die for. And people rave about the date bars. So, you know, I wouldn't say we do things a lot different than any other aid station you've been to. You know, we're going to have the typical salty and savory, but the date bars seem to be a hit. And I do, like you say, it's West Texas hospitality. We make sure that the people heading up each aid station, you know, they have a personality. They're friendly. They know what's going to happen when those people come in. They know that they're expecting help. They know they want to get them in and out of there. So having some people who are runners, are trail runners, they understand. Some of these guys, they want to set the record. You know, Nicole Bitter, yes, she still has that record. And by the way, if we're going to name drop, I still keep trying to get Nicole and Zach to come run it again.
Oh, yeah. They can win it together.
Yes, I would love for them to run it together. And I reached out to Camille Herron. Well, I reached out to her husband at the OKC Marathon to try to get Camille to come run it. Tracy Falbo ran it a few years ago. So Gordy Ainsley asked me if he could come run it. And then he must have had a conflict. But, you know, it wouldn't bother us to have some big names, but we do love that it's small and smaller and quaint. But, you know, we would love any and everybody to come experience our beautiful canyon.
Yeah. I mean, more on the West Texas attitude is that, you know, we've got Buddy Holly, Waylon Jennings, Roy Orbison, like three of the most iconic musicians of all time, you know, from that area, bringing the attitude. And then the thing that really turned me around on how, because when I was in West Texas, all I could see was that it was flat. Like 66% of the world's cotton comes from a 90-mile radius of Lubbock. That's what I was told growing up. So it's just flat. The wind blows, everything turns brown. The sky is brown. And so I was very negative on it. And then I read Empire of the Summer Moon. And the way that, S.C. Wynn, that author, he was a runner-up to the Pulitzer Prize for that book. The way that he describes the plains, to me, made me like I was ready to sell the house and move back because it's so amazing. And so then he goes into detail, and it's the story of the Comanche Indians and why Texas is my takeaway was, he didn't word it this way, but my takeaway is that the reason that Texas is the way that it is, it's filled with people, let's say like me, who can be a little bit brash and forward, but also, you know, we can be nice and hospitable, is because the people who remained in Texas were the ones who were able to push the Comanche Indians back after 300 years of trying. and the Six Flags over Texas were Mexico and the United States, France, Spain, Mexico again, finally the United States again. So the last stand of the Comanche Indians versus the Texas Rangers was in Cedar Canyon, which is where I grew up. There's a little church camp right there at Cedar Canyon that I went to year after year after year. And to know that right where that is, right where I think it's called One Way Camp, right where that camp is where the Comanches, it was the last stand of the Comanches. And I felt like this deep connection with the area to see like, okay, there's all these things that bring this attitude to the Texans, this heritage of the Comanche Indians. And then all of a sudden everything rests in like the final of everything is in Palo Duro Canyon. And that's what made me think I got to run there. Like I've got to go suffer there. I got to go see what this is like. So now let's go to the starting line. Where's the starting line? And maybe let's just kind of talk through the 50K, the route of it, like elevation gain, cool things on it. So where are we starting? Where do we drive to the starting line?
So once you get to the canyon, you go through the gate, and then you just go down the big hill. You have to put your vehicle in low gear typically, and you're going to make a first left once you get there, and it's called Mac Dick Pavilion. Okay. Mac Dick was a local gentleman who was very giving, owned a lot of land. Actually, the home I'm in right now, he owned this land. Really? So I purchased it from his family. But that, they were people who were here just years and years and years ago, had many acres of land, and he donated several, probably million, to build that pavilion. There's a paved parking lot. And then across the road, there's an amphitheater. You've probably heard of the play Texas, very popular as well in Palo Duro Canyon. Yeah. So there's a parking lot there at the amphitheater. So we have plenty of parking for people, but start finish starts right there in that pavilion. And I'll let Kirsten kind of explain the course to you.
Okay.
So we have a main loop, which is the 25K, so about 15 and a half miles. Yeah. On that loop, there's 1,220 feet of gain. Okay. So it looks easy on paper, but it's not, mainly because it's hot. Usually it heats up into the 90s sometimes.
Are we doing this in October? Is that when it is? September, October?
Yeah, it's October 19th this year.
Okay, got it.
But it's way hotter than a lot of people expect. And it's runnable, but there are some technical sections that is also unexpected if you've never been there. So our main loop, our 25K, for the 50K, you do it twice. So that's like 2,400 feet. And then the 50 mile, their first loop is mostly the main loop, except there's another 4 mile add-on to that. Yeah. So they do that first, and then they do the same 25K loop 2 more times. So they come back to the start finish.
Is that elevation gain, is it rolling, or are there moments where you're going up, to the top of the canyon, running on the plains and coming back down? Or are you always in the canyon?
You're always in the canyon, and it's mostly short but steep climbs and descents. There is one hill that's about a mile long at the Rock Garden Trail. Yeah. And we've always run it, which direction? West?
So we've always run it west.
West.
Oh. Okay.
Go ahead. And this year we're going to reverse the direction, so it will be east. So our plan is from now on is to reverse direction each year.
Yes.
So it will be very interesting to see people that have run it before. Yeah. What they think, because it's totally going to change the way the run is.
you say that you don't mark it. However, I think the reverse loop thing is a really great marketing approach to get people to come back who've run it once.
Yeah.
I talked to some people running the No Business 100, and they have a belt buckle for one direction for clockwise. They have a separate belt buckle for counterclockwise, and so you want to get them both. Or Hard Rock obviously does both. I don't think it's a gimmick, so I don't want it to come off like I'm saying that. I just think that I come and run it one direction, I get a certain time. I'm really interested in coming back and trying that other direction. And especially if it's like a home region race, if I'm driving 4 or 5 hours to it, I'm going to come back to that, you know, to try and see what the other direction is like. So I love that idea.
and that's Kirsten's idea. And we've put it out there to a few people, you know, local people who run down there a lot, and they are very excited about it. They say it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot more challenging. I had this little thing happen down there on the direction we're going this year. Had a little fall, broke my finger, broke my shoulder, hit 10 stitches.
How long ago?
And that was last August.
Oh gosh.
And I wasn't even really running fast. So, you know, I mean, all of us know accidents can happen. Things happen. Yeah. But we do, you know, when we know there are going to be a few bloody knees, and we have that typically every year. You know, we always just pray that we don't have any major accidents. We have had to take a few people out who were very dehydrated, extremely dehydrated. Like Kirsten said, there's kind of a backside that's called Capitol Peak, very open, no shade. And she talked about the temps. They can really, it can heat up out there and get really hot. So we really want, and we try to put that on our website. Make sure that you're hydrating. Make sure that you're carrying plenty of water, because you just never know what's going to happen out there. Yeah.
Is it, how exposed is it? Are you ever running under trees at all? Is it entirely exposed?
I'd say maybe a quarter of it has trees.
Yeah,
really?
Maybe not even that much. Yeah. It's pretty open.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of sunscreen, lots of bug spray, and lots of water.
I think also important to note that when you think of Texas, you might even, you know, you think of sea level. There's this wild caprock escarpment thing happening in West Texas that you're at what, 3,200 feet above sea level there, 3,500. So you're way up there. Salt Lake is only 4,200. So you're really not too much lower than a high mountain town. So that matters.
Yeah, for sure.
The technicality, so the technicality then, so if there are trees, that means do you have some roots that you're dealing with at times? Is it just rocks? Like what makes it technical?
Rocks.
It's mainly the rock sections. Yeah. Like Kirsten said, as you're kind of traversing there, it's undulating and rolling, like you mentioned, but just a few places, it is just very technical and not very wide, you know, pretty small. So you've got to pay attention. You know, there's some major drop-offs on many parts of the trail. Some of it is flat, runnable, just dirt, but it's not like Rocky Raccoon, you know, where you have all those roots. I just ran Flower Moon in Oklahoma, and tons and tons of rocks there. That's the nice part about our race, is I do think it's very runnable, and we've had some pretty fast times. Yeah.
Here's what I love about Texas. So I've actually never ran a race outside of Utah, because Utah has incredible variety, from big mountain runs in northern Utah to the desert, the most desert-like runs, you know, outside of the Sahara. You know, you got very deserty stuff. So I've never left. But what I want to come do is a bunch of races in Texas, just because, you know, my family's like 5 generations from surrounding Austin. And my mom, you know, Coleman, this is like Brownwood, all these sort of like central Texas area. I was born in Brownwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, super random.
Yeah.
But, you know,
no, I'm familiar with it though.
Yeah. My dad was at Howard Payne University when I was born.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, what I love about this is, so then Texas has this incredible variety to it. I think of Big Bend, 50 miler, 50K put on by Trail Roots. Something like that out of Austin.
I think so.
And I think of Rocky Raccoon, which is a super interesting race that you referenced. And then this one, I mean, the variety is really cool. I think that's maybe just what I want to say, is that you could have a year of doing a bunch of races throughout Texas and get incredible variety. I don't know that there's any mountainy type vert things in Texas. Are there? That I'm not thinking
I wouldn't
of?
think. Maybe that Big
West.
Bend.
Big Bend might be the closest.
That one might be
down near El Paso.
Yeah.
That's the only
but I mean, I've run Bandera. I mean, around the Dallas area, Austin. Bandera's got some. Yeah, it's got.
I don't know how Bandera got to be so in the zeitgeist of trail running. I don't know I don't know its ascent. It's such a random area to me growing up in Texas. Like, I'd look up it on a map. I'd never heard of it. I don't know how they did that. Good job.
Yeah, it's you talk about a tough course. Woo, it's tough.
Bandera is?
It is. It's tough just because the rocks, the cactus. Oh my gosh, you just leave there and your legs are just bleeding from all the cactus. But
that makes sense.
It's a lot of up and down.
Yeah. And so for your race, you don't put on multiple races through the year. You do one race per year. That's
so from the store, we do 5K, 10Ks. I own Get Fit. I own the local running store.
Oh,
and
okay. Oh,
So we do put on races in town. We used to have a spring trail run down in the canyon that was just a half marathon and a 4-mile loop. However, we are discussing possibly a last person standing, possibly a 24-hour. We have talked to the super at the state park, and they are extremely interested in us starting something like that. We thought we could do some kind of trail series, include the trail run, include maybe the spring half, and then include something of longer distance, whether it's last person standing, whether it's 24 hours, whether it's a 6, 12, 24-hour type. So that's what Kirsten and I are going to be talking about for 2025 is seeing if we can implement something like that to, again, like you said, promote this West Texas beauty that we have and the West Texas, friendliness, the West Texas way. And just, I think we feel like running in our area is really peaking right now. And we feel like trail running is, people need a challenge. Life gets, I hate to say this, but sometimes it gets easy. And sometimes you need to challenge yourself. And a marathon is a marathon is a marathon. Yeah. And I'm not saying I've not run a lot of them, but I love the challenge. Kirsten loves the challenge. I think a lot of people love that challenge. So we thought if we could come up with, we've seen several of those series. We think, gosh, we've got a beautiful place to have that.
Yes. I'd love to stay in that conversation with you. I think it would be so cool. A last person standing, are you thinking like a backyard style or, like like Laz Lake sort of thing?
Yes. So we have a 4-mile loop from that pavilion that if you started every hour on the hour and then you change directions at a certain point, whether you do every lap or whatever, I think every lap would be the way to do it like he does it. And then, you give them an hour. And then I've had a lot of hikers in the area say, we love that idea, but could you do something for us? Because we love to hike. And there are a lot of hikers that hike Palo Duro Canyon, but they don't run it. But she was like, I have so many hiker buddies that if you did a 24-hour, I guarantee you we would have a lot of people come out. So now we're thinking, okay, do we do both? How do we implement that? So, our wheels are just turning and we're thinking and contemplating and, talking to someone who has some background in that would probably help us. So,
oh gosh, that's cool. There's, because of the way that it's growing, road running and trail running are both growing, but trail running is taking market share from road, but road is just constantly, that's our funnel into trail is coming through road. Right. And the backyard thing, I think, every state, every region needs to have one of those. They can be someone's A race for the year for sure, but it can also be a great thing to drop in to, 4 months before your A race. So if you're going to run any big mountain thing or whatever, and you live in West Texas or you live 8 hours from where you are, that you could do that. It's a great fitness check. It's a blast of a community, because of the way that home base is on that, and it's every hour, just the community at those things. I think, I bet your crew would crush that in terms of just fun and hospitality and the praline things or whatever you were talking about earlier.
Date bars.
Date bars. That's right.
I told Kirsten the other day, okay, I'm not going to work in the store anymore. I'm just going to be a race director. Right. This is so exciting. I think we could, we would be so busy all year long, but it would be a good busy, and it would be a busy that I think, gosh, we love. Yeah, we love doing this kind of stuff. So. And the nice thing is I have a barn. We can store, as much aid station equipment that we need, whatever we need, we have a place to store it, which is always nice. You know, as you feel like you're growing and you're doing more things, you know, having food trucks available down there would be great for those people. We have the general store. They cook. So another fun thing that we didn't mention about the race is we provide burgers and veggie burgers for every finisher and pretty much anybody they bring. We serve a lot of burgers, and people really rave about that. And those are made from, you know, guys who have been in that canyon running that store for years and years. They started when they were teenagers. So, awesome. You know, that kind of gives me chill bumps too, that it's tradition, you know, it's just so much rich tradition for the area that we feel like we're giving back to, not, you know, the people who work there, and they're giving back to our runners. And, and then I just think, you know, it's a beautiful place to be, kind of one with God, so to speak. I think I mean, you're a trail runner. You understand that feeling when you get out there.
Yeah. You know, I talked with the race director, Billy White, and the race that he did is called the Sörmlands 100, and it's just south of Stockholm in Sweden. And so not all of these interviews are with the race director, some of them with people who have ran the race or are training for the race currently. But I love talking to race directors because it seems like there's a common thread between all of them, that they do, whether or not it's their full intention, there is a piece of their heart that wants to uplift the area. And so you're bringing in local businesses, you know, you're bringing in the food from a local restaurant, or you know, burgers from a place that's down there. There's a story around it. There's heritage to it. And I think that's one of the things. I just don't know enough about road running to know if it's ever that way in a marathon, but it seems like trail runners are always just more one with the earth and more one with their community. You know, we're not obsessed with time, though we do want to do a good job out there. There's time. It's like one part time, one part community, one part, you know, I don't know, other things. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much about it. And you two seem to also be that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, to speak to road running, I agree with you. I mean, and you talk to people who've moved, like you mentioned, most people go from road running because that's where, you know, you're in a city and, oh, well, what's their offer? Well, it's a 5K. So, and people are like, oh, I can't run trails. Well, sure you can. You just have to practice.
And we don't even run that much.
Yeah, exactly. Making that transition, the first thing I noticed was, wow, people are friendly. They want you to do well. It's not like elbowing you at the start line to get in front of you at a marathon. Now, I love marathons and I love road racing, but once I got into trail running, you're right. It's just the camaraderie. It's, you know, people care about you. You know, hey, are you okay? Somebody falls. Hey, let me help you up. Gosh,
they offer their own fuel.
I was running long haul, and Harvey Lewis was there. And of course, he finished days before I did, hours. But his camp was right by ours. Well, I had, and I guess this is okay, Zofran, and his partner, Kelly, I believe. Is that her name? I mean, my camp was talking to her, his camp and her camp. And they said, oh, well, do you have any of that? I'm like, yeah, she can have it. I don't know her, but if her stomach's upset, that's what I love about trail running. If you need something, somebody right by you, hey, I've got water if you don't have it. I had a guy hook up with me in Bandera one night because his headlamp went out. Ma'am, can I follow you? Yes, let's do this. Let's get in together. Let's make sure we don't fall. And I love that about trail runners. We care about each other.
My first experience was I was running red hot 33K in Moab, maybe 2013 or 14. And it was my first big trail run like that. And I ran out of food, and I come across someone, and I had done some road marathons, some road half marathons. I didn't have an expectation that someone else was going to help me. It wasn't even in my consciousness like that to ask someone for their food because they need it. And this person saw I was struggling, and they pulled out and gave me half of everything they had. They're like, hey, I don't need this. I don't need this. I do need this, but you can have half of it. And it was just like, then combine that in my mind and in my heart with West Texas culture. And I think it's just got to be that with the volume turned up to 11. I think that's probably what it's like out there. And that's why I will be at your race. If not in definitely not this year because we're moving to France, but maybe next year. to be out there. Or if you do a backyard thing or a 24-hour I don't know if I would do the 24-hour, I'd do the backyard, or I would definitely be there to try and do the 50 miler.
Great.
Awesome.
We'd love to have you. We would love to.
Well, any final thoughts? Anything you want people to know about your race that we haven't talked about? Anything come to mind? It's okay if there's not anything, but just want to give you the chance.
I think we covered a lot of it.
I do. I mean, I think people have to see it to believe it.
Yeah.
Yes,
to really
I agree. Maybe send me some photos too. And I know I'm not saying the photos replace it, but so when I send this out, I'll just make sure that everybody can see the beauty. What I wish everyone could encounter is what it's like to go north on I-27, thinking that you are just on the flattest thing that you'll ever see. And that's no exaggeration. One side of Lubbock, Texas to the other is less than 3 feet difference. So then you're driving and all of a sudden it's like the bottom falls out.
Right.
Because am I right? Palo Duro, you're not going up. It's just like, just all of a sudden the flatness you're just going down.
You just go straight down. Yeah.
So crazy.
Here's another cool little fact. We have a bagpiper that plays in the morning while it's dark, because the 50 milers start in the dark, and the 50K, it's pretty dark. By the time 25K starts, it's getting light. But it's a neat atmosphere. It's just a really neat atmosphere.
I can't wait. I hope to see you both in 2025 when I'm down there, but good luck with 2024, and let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.